The 2021 NFL Draft is just days away, a time where every NFL franchise has hope for the future of their franchise. I thought I should make a video about this. Now, I could talk about one specific draft, I could talk about one specific position in a specific draft class. However, no position in the draft is more talked about than the very first one, the first overall pick. Teams that hold this pick have obviously not been very good the season before because they had the worst record in the NFL. However, the opportunity to draft whoever you want from the entire draft class, there should never be a miss here. You have no limitations on who you can draft. You don't have to worry about who's been already picked. You can just pick whoever you want. So there should be no misses. All of these should be 10 out of 10 players, right? Well, unfortunately, that's not quite how it works. I'm taking a look at every single first overall pick since the AFL-NFL merger in 1970, to look back at what these players did good, what they did bad, and how the Jacksonville Jaguars can learn from these mistakes and make sure they get a good player. So grab some popcorn and settle down, because this is going to be a very long video. First pick in the 1970 NFL Draft, Terry Bradshaw.
It's not like the old Steelers, believe me. The public, the football world might as well wake up and just take what I'm saying and heed it, because we're going to be a winner this year. I'm sure of it.
Terry Bradshaw played 14 seasons in the NFL, all with the Pittsburgh Steelers. In that time, he played in and won 4 Super Bowls. First one in 1974 versus the Minnesota Vikings. The second one in 1975 versus the Dallas Cowboys. The third one in 1978, again versus the Cowboys. And then the last one in 1979 versus the Los Angeles Rams. During his playing days, he won the NFL MVP award in 1978, 2 Super Bowl MVPs, a first-team All-Pro bid, a second-team All-Pro bid, and a touchdown leader in both the 1978 and 1972 seasons. He was elected to the Hall of Fame in 1989. It wasn't all smooth sailing for Bradshaw, however. Early on in his career, he struggled in-game, and he also struggled to earn the starting job. He didn't actually earn the starting job until his second season, and was eventually benched in 1974, the same year he would get his job back and lead the team to the Super Bowl. Injuries also played a part in his career. He had quite a few throughout the years, and some that looked really bad but ended up being not as bad as they could have been. In 1976, he missed 4 games due to neck and wrist injuries, and in 1982, he played every single game with a shot before the game due to a failing elbow that he required surgery on in the offseason.
When it ceases being fun, I probably should have retired earlier. The last game I played in Pittsburgh was against the Chargers, doing all I can to try to get it to win this playoff game. Bust my ass down that field, make a bad decision, throwing across the field, throw an interception, booed my ass off the field. Nobody knew about the stomach shots. Nobody knew about the elbow shots. I kept it quiet, but just got old.
With that surgery, he ended up not playing very much in 1983, still recovering from that surgery. His final game with the Steelers was against the New York Jets in 1983, in which he came onto the field, threw 2 touchdown passes, but eventually had to leave due to that elbow. With 12 winning seasons in the NFL and the team falling to mediocrity when he left, I'm pretty confident in saying this pick was a success. The first pick in the 1971 NFL Draft was Jim Plunkett. Plunkett played from 1971 to 1986 in the NFL. His first few seasons from 1971 to 1975, he was with the New England Patriots. was then traded to the San Francisco 49ers ahead of the 1976 season and played there for 2 years. And then was released in 1978 and signed with the Oakland at the time and then became the Los Angeles Raiders. He played there until 1986. During this time he played in and won 2 Super Bowls, the first one in 1980 versus the Philadelphia Eagles. The second one in 1983 versus the Washington Redskins. Throughout his NFL career, he earned 1 Super Bowl MVP, a Comeback Player of the Year award in 1980, the Rookie of the Year, and tied for the longest touchdown pass in NFL history, a 99-yard touchdown.
Get back, going, way up the field, grabs plenty of room, makes the catch at the 35, the 50, the 40, the 30, he's going all the way, 99 yards, touchdown Raiders! Holy Toledo!
He started strong in the 1976 season with a 6-1 record, but ended with an 8-6 record. He was released in the 1978 preseason. Both of his Super Bowl runs, he started the year as the backup, but ended up playing in the Super Bowl due to injuries to the starting quarterbacks. After his miraculous seasons, Plunkett ended up with the 1984 and 1985 seasons either injured or playing in a backup role. He didn't actually officially retire until 1988, but did not play in the 1987 season due to a rotator cuff surgery, an injury he suffered in 1986. Overall, Jim Plunkett was a good player, but I'm not sure he was worth the #1 overall pick, seeing as he was mostly a career backup. The first pick in the 1972 NFL draft was a defensive end named Walt Pat Lusky. Although sacks were not officially counted during his time, he unofficially has 21.5 sacks throughout his career. He was drafted by the Buffalo Bills and led the team in sacks his rookie season with 5. He improved that number to 7 sacks within his second season. He was also named Defensive Player of the Week in Week 11. He was traded to the then St. Louis Cardinals in 1976, but did not play that year due to an injury. However, he did play in 1977. With limited sacks, he ended up being cut by the St. Louis Cardinals and signed with the Chicago Bears. Just 3 days into his Chicago Bears tenure, he suffered a back injury doing an agility test. That injury required surgery, which ended up ending his career. Overall, I don't think he was worth the first overall pick, as he never officially led the NFL in sacks. The first overall pick in the 1973 NFL draft was John Matsyuk. Matsyuk was drafted by the Houston Oilers in 1973, however he never played it down for them. That is because he also attempted to play in the World Football League. He played 7 snaps there before he was yanked from the game because he was told he could not play in both leagues. The Oilers did not like this and traded him to Kansas City in 1974, in which he played 1.5 years in Kansas City. In the middle of the 1975 season, he was traded to Washington, played a few games, and then was cut. He actually signed with the Oakland Raiders in 1976 and played with them until 1982. During his time with the Raiders, he played in and won 2 Super Bowls in 1976 and 1980. He spent all of the 1982 season on injured reserve, and then he retired at the end of the year. Matsyuk was not just an athlete, however, he was also an actor, most famously starring in the 1985 film The Goonies. The first pick in the 1974 NFL draft was Ed Too Tall Jones, a defensive end. Jones was drafted by the Dallas Cowboys and played there from 1974 until 1978. He ended up leaving the NFL after the 78 season to become a boxer. He was 6-0 in his boxing career with 5 knockouts. He described this in an interview as the best decision he ever made. He said, "It made me a better football player." He came back to the Dallas Cowboys in 1980 and played there until 1989. He had 3 straight Pro Bowl and All-Pro appearances from 1981 to 1983. While he was in the NFL, he never missed a game due to injury. Throughout his career, he played in 16 playoff games and 3 Super Bowls, winning 1 versus the Denver Broncos. Although sacks were not officially counted when Jones played, he unofficially has 106 sacks. He officially has 57.5. He also has 19 fumble recoveries and 3 interceptions. Jones was also instrumental in convincing the NFL to track swat balls as a stat. Overall, Ed Jones was a very good player. The first overall pick in the 1975 NFL draft was quarterback Steve Bartkowski. Bartkowski was drafted by the Atlanta Falcons in 1975 and played there until 1985. He then played his final year in 1986 with the Los Angeles Rams. Throughout his NFL career, he earned Rookie of the Year in 1975, 2 Pro Bowl appearances in 1980 and 1981. He was the passing touchdown leader in 1980. He led the league in passer rating in 1983, and Atlanta retired his number 10 jersey. He was the first of 10 quarterbacks to have consecutive 30-plus touchdowns in 1 year. He set the record with consecutive passing games with 3 touchdowns at home. Peyton Manning was a quarterback to break it in 2004. While he is considered by many a good quarterback, that does not mean he did not struggle. He started the first 11 games in 1984, but got injured for the rest of the season. The Atlanta Falcons started 0-5 in 1985 and was benched for a different quarterback and cut at the end of the year. He ended up playing a few games in his last season for the Los Angeles Rams, however, he did not start the whole year due to injuries and ineffective play. Overall, Bartkowski is a good quarterback, he just wasn't at the same level as Terry Bradshaw and Roger Staubach. The first overall pick in the 1976 NFL Draft was defensive end Leroy Solomon. Solomon, drafted by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, unofficially has 78.5 sacks through his career. However, he only officially has 23. He also has 10 fumble recoveries and 1 touchdown. Solomon played from 1976 to 1984. Through his time in the NFL, he had 6 Pro Bowl appearances, and all 6 of them were straight appearances from 1979 to 1984. He also was named to the first team All-Pro 3 times in his career, once to the second team. He was a part of the NFL 100 anniversary team, as well as the All-80s team. He was named the Defensive Player of the Year in 1979, and Tampa Bay officially retired his 63 number. Unfortunately, a back injury forced him to retire in 1984. However, Solomon was a very good defensive end and definitely worth the first overall pick in the draft.
The Tampa Bay Buccaneers select as the first selection in the first round, Ricky Bell, fullback, University of Southern California.
Ricky Bell played in Tampa Bay from 1977 until 1981. He played this last year with the San Diego Chargers in 1982. At the time, Bell signed a record 5-year, $1.2 million rookie contract. The head coach of Tampa Bay at the time was the USC head coach while Bell played there, which probably had something to do with them drafting him. In 1979, Bell helped the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to reach the championship game. However, they lost that game. In that year, however, he had 1,203 rushing yards and 7 touchdowns. In total, his career had 3,063 yards, 16 touchdowns, and 3.7 yards per carry. While Bell is not a bad running back, Tampa passed on Tony Dorsett in favor for him. Dorsett outplayed Bell throughout his career.
We were not anyways near as good, but he couldn't play very often. He would get an injury, and where he might be out a day or two, he'd be out 2 or 3 weeks. I didn't know the reason why. The trainer and the doctor didn't know the reason why. I summed it up and says, Ricky Bell would like to be on the West Coast. I'm going to put him there.
Traded to the Chargers in 1982, Bell, number 42, played little. Always sick or injured. It was discovered he had contracted a rare skin and muscle disease called dermatomyositis. On November 28, 1984, the mightiest Trojan lost the one fight he never had a chance to win.
Earl Campbell was the first overall pick in the 1978 NFL Draft. Drafted by the Oilers, he played there from 1978 until 1984. Then at the end of his career, he was traded to New Orleans and played there for 1.5 seasons. Earl Campbell was a beast. He was a 5-time Pro Bowler, a 3-time first team. He had the NFL MVP award in 1979. He had the Offensive Player of the Year 3 straight years from 1978 to 1980. He was the Rookie of the Year. He was a 3-time rushing champion, 1978 through 1980. He led the NFL in rushing touchdowns twice, 1979 and 1980. His number 34 was retired. He was a part of the 100 anniversary team and the All-70s team. He rushed for a rookie record of 1,450 yards. That's how good he was. as a rookie. Unfortunately, he was injured in the 1979 divisional round, and although they did win that game, and he came back for the championship game, they lost that game to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Campbell had his most productive season in 1980, rushing for 1,934 yards. In that year, he had 4 games over 200 yards rushing. He had 4 straight 1,000-yard seasons. Then the NFL strike happened. He came back with another 1,000-yard season in 1983. Without that strike, he could have, and probably would have, had 6 straight 1,000-yard seasons. Campbell demanded a trade in 1983, however the Oilers owner said absolutely not, as he did not want to give players that kind of power. However, with the team struggling, he did end up trading him 6 games into the 1984 season to the New Orleans Saints. Campbell ended up splitting time in the backfield in New Orleans, and while he was still a good running back, he wasn't the dominant force that people know Earl Campbell as. He ended his career with 9,407 yards rushing, 74 touchdowns, and an average yards per carry of 4.3. I don't think I have to say too much more. Campbell was definitely worth the first overall. 1979 NFL draft was Tom Kuhn. Kuhn was drafted by the Buffalo Bills, however he signed with Montreal in the CFL. He played 3 seasons in the CFL, earning a Grey Cup MVP in 1979 and a CFL All-Star in 1980. However, in 1981, he only played 3 games due to an elbow injury. After that, he decided to come back to the NFL. However, Buffalo had traded his rights away to San Francisco for a first-round pick in 1983. That pick, they ended up picking Jim Kelly, so even though he didn't help Buffalo as a draft pick, he did help them out in a way. He led Cleveland in tackles 3 of the seasons he played there, from 1982 to 1985. He then signed as a reserve for San Francisco, not really playing much while he was there. Overall, he had 10 interceptions in his NFL career, 5 fumbled recoveries, and 6.5 sacks. Not exactly the production you want from a first overall pick. The first overall pick in the 1980 NFL Draft was running back Billy Sims. Sims played in Detroit from 1980 until 1984, only playing 4 seasons. However, in those 4 seasons, he had 3 Pro Bowl appearances, a first-team All-Pro bid in 1981, a second-team All-Pro bid in 1980, and the touchdown rushing leader in 1980. He also got the Rookie of the Year award. Billy Sims had an amazing first game in the NFL.
Find out.
Billy Sims. Boy, I'll see you later. Isn't that beautiful? Billy Sims. Oh, he's marvelous. Billy Sims following Dexter Bussey, goes outside to the 5, touchdown. There he goes, the magnificent Billy Sims. Is he ever for real?
In a stunning debut against Rams, Billy Sims had over 200 total yards and scored 3 touchdowns.
In his first and only playoff game in his career, he had 114 yards in a wild card game versus San Francisco.
Gary Danielson got the start in the playoff game against San Francisco.
Gary threw 5 interceptions that game.
In the 4th quarter, the Lions trailed 17-9.
I'm kicking buckets and tables out the way because I'm upset because I'm not getting to carry the ball. And I was telling the coach on the sideline, we need to run the ball. We got to run the ball. That's what got us here.
Sims and the Lions came roaring back.
Touchdown, Billy Sims. The Lions take it into the end zone for the first time this afternoon. There's a give to Billy. Quick trap up the middle. Touchdown, Detroit. All right, Billy! With less than 5 minutes to go, Detroit has taken the lead.
Where's Al Michaels, huh? Do you believe in miracles?
Joe Montana then drove the 49ers 70 yards to take back the lead.
It all came down to kicker Eddie Murray.
There it is right now. This is pressure. Long enough. It is no good. He missed it to the right.
Even though most people, when they think of number 20 and the Lions running backs, they think of Barry Sanders, Billy Sims was also good.
Oh my goodness, did you see that? He hit Steve Brown with what looked like a karate kick.
It's just, he didn't get to play as long.
In warm-ups, I was complaining because my shoes was getting caught in the seams when I run or take off or whatever.
Here comes Billy on a sweep right behind Greco. Uh-oh. Yeah. Billy Sims holding his right knee.
But I'm thinking it's just a bad sprain. I'll be okay.
The damage was extensive. Sims had torn multiple ligaments and underwent a 7-hour surgery.
He would never step foot on an NFL field again.
Commissioner Pete Rozelle announced that George Rogers was New Orleans bound.
George Rogers was the first overall pick in the 1981 NFL Draft. Drafted by New Orleans, he played there from 1981 until 1984. During his NFL career, he had 3 Pro Bowl appearances, 1981, 1982, and 1986, and a 2-time first-team bid in 1981 and 1986. He also had the Rookie of the Year award in 1981, along with the rushing touchdown leader. He led the NFL with 1,674 rushing yards in his first season, second in all-time rookie rushing yards behind Eric Dickerson. He was arrested after his rookie season for cocaine possession. He was also arrested in 1990 for marijuana possession. Throughout his career, George Rogers had 4 1,000-yard seasons. However, at the end of the 1984 season, New Orleans decided to trade him to Washington. The reasons for the trade was his drug arrest, a knee injury that happened in 1983, which was also the reason New Orleans went out and got Earl Campbell in 1984. After splitting the backfield with Campbell in 1 year, he was traded to Washington in 1985. He played in Washington until 1987. He retired at the end of the 1987 season due to a nagging injury. However, he did get a Super Bowl ring while he was there. Overall, Rodgers ended with 7,176 yards rushing, 54 touchdowns, and a 4.2 yards per carry average. George Rogers was a good back. However, if he would have stayed out of legal trouble, he might have been an even better one. The first pick in the 1982 draft was defensive end Kenneth Sims. Sims was drafted by the New England Patriots in 1982 and played until 1989. In 74 career games, he amassed 17 sacks in 8 seasons. He also played in the Super Bowl versus the Chicago Bears in 1985. He only played all 16 games in one season once, 1984, and had just 3.5 sacks that year. In 1990, he was charged with cocaine possession, and he showed up to training camp out of shape, which caused the New England Patriots to cut him before the 1990 season started. For a first overall pick and only having 17 sacks his entire career, I'd say he's probably not worth the first overall pick.
Moore selects as the first choice in the draft, quarterback John Elway of Stanford.
We had been in discussions with him 2 or 3 months before the draft that I was not going to play in Baltimore, that if that came to it, I was going to play baseball for the Yankees.
Everybody knows the draft year story of John Elway, refusing to play in Indianapolis because of a bad team and not wanting to be wasted, and also because of concerns about head coach Frank Kush at the time. People know this story. It's a very popular story. However, what's not as popular as what could have happened if the Colts didn't trade the pick to the Denver Broncos. In 1982, there were discussions to actually trade the pick to the San Francisco 49ers in exchange for a young quarterback named Joe Montana. Could you imagine how much different the NFL would be if that happened? Anyway, John Elway did start the first 2 games of his NFL career, but was benched for a veteran to come into the game later on, who would take the starting role in October before a shoulder injury sidelined him for the rest of the season. From then on, it was John Elway's team. John Elway is a decorated quarterback, playing from 1983 until 1998. Elway played in 5 Super Bowls. 5, and he lost more than he won. The losses included 1986 to the New York Giants, 1987 to the Washington Redskins at the time, and lost in 1989 to the San Francisco 49ers. In 1997, he ruptured his right bicep tendon during a preseason game. However, he would go on to play the rest of the season. And, well, the rest was history.
Almost offside, but the Packers got back on. Elway scrambling, looking, running, diving inside the 5-yard line for a first down. Is he only 37? How bad does John Elway want to win this football game? When you see that quarterbacks go down, not Elway.
John Elway retired at the end of 1998 after winning back-to-back Super Bowls. Denver decided to retire his number 7 in 1999. Overall, John Elway ended with 300 passing touchdowns to 226 interceptions and had 51,475 yards. Seeing as he played in the NFL for that long and he was that successful, playing in 5 Super Bowls, winning 2, having a Super Bowl MVP, having an NFL MVP, and the Walter Payton Man of the Year award, along with 9 Pro Bowls, yeah, I'd say he's pretty much worth that first overall pick, even if it wasn't by the team who drafted him.
It's only 4 words. This one's for John.
The first overall pick in the 1984 NFL Draft was wide receiver Irving Fryar. Fryar played in New England from 1984 until 1992, then went on to play in Miami from 1993 to 1995, then Philadelphia 1996 to 1998, and finished up his career in Washington from 1999 to 2000. Throughout his career, he had 5 Pro Bowl appearances, 2 second-team All-Pros in 1985 and 1994, New England's All-80s Decade team, and New England's 50th anniversary team. Irving Fryar didn't start his career the best. He was just average in New England. His first 1,000-yard season wasn't until he was 27 years old, a feat he would go on to repeat 4 more times after the age of 30, along with 4 of his 5 Pro Bowls. Even though Fryar was a late bloomer, that doesn't mean he wasn't a good wide receiver. He had almost 5 1,000-yard seasons. In 1995, he came up just a bit short, getting 910 yards. Throughout his career, Fryar amassed 851 receptions for 12,785 yards and 84 touchdowns. While he did have lots of off-the-field problems, on the field he was a pretty good wide receiver, especially at the end of his career. It's tough to say whether or not he was worth a first overall pick, however, he did contribute a lot in the NFL.
For the score, and Myron Guyton was eating your dust. Dolphins on top 10-0, and you like that play.
First pick of the 1985 NFL Draft, Bruce Smith.
What I remember primarily about Bruce Smith was watching a game, and he made an absolutely unbelievable sack. And as a young kid, I said to my dad, why are they booing him? And he goes, oh, they're not booing. They're chanting, Bruce.
Smith holds the NFL sack record with 200. Do I have to continue? Well, I will anyway. He played from 1985 until 2003. Through that time, he had 2 Defensive Player of the Year awards in 1990 and 1996, 8 first-team All-Pro bids, 2 second-team All-Pro bids, 11 Pro Bowls, the 100th anniversary team, and the 80s All-Decade team. Buffalo also retired his number 78. Although Bruce started his rookie year slow, by 1989 he already was the Buffalo Bills' sack leader. He did miss most of the 1991 season due to injury, and Bruce Smith was also a part of the famous 4 Buffalo teams that made 4 consecutive Super Bowls but lost all 4.
This is like a homecoming for me. I was born and raised in Norfolk, Virginia.
We got to come home because the Redskins is a hometown team. Same way that he chose Virginia Tech, anywhere where he could be closer to his father, so it really played a big factor, and his father loved the Redskins.
George Smith Sr. never got to see his son suit up in Washington. He passed away weeks before Bruce's first Redskins training camp.
In spite of this, Bruce Smith had a bounce-back year, having 10 sacks within the season.
And the kid whose father told him not to quit wasn't going to stop.
Back he goes. Looks, waits, hit, sack. There's your big play, and who is it? Bruce. Bruce Smith is 5 away from the all-time record now. He's in there. He has tied the record. He's going to get a half a sack. Palmer, the quarterback. Play action fake. Sack. Bruce Smith has got it. He's got the record. He's got the record. Bruce Smith, hands in the air, walks over to the Redskin bench. He finally got the record.
Overall, Bruce Smith was definitely worth it. He had 200 career sacks, 43 forced fumbles, 15 fumble recoveries, a fumble returned for a touchdown, 2 interceptions, and 1 interception returned for a touchdown. He also had 1,224 combined tackles, and that's an unofficial number. Pick in the 1986 NFL Draft, running back Leroy Jackson. Jackson was a dual-threat athlete playing in both the MLB and the NFL. He was drafted by Tampa Bay in 1986 with the first overall pick, but never played there. This is because the Tampa Bay owner at the time told Jackson that the NCAA and the SEC had cleared a trip with him in a private jet to talk about football, which was not true, and that cost him the rest of his college eligibility for baseball. As a result, he got mad at Tampa and decided not to play there, opting instead to go to the MLB. Not expecting to be picked again in the next year's NFL draft, in 1987 he was drafted by the Los Angeles Rams in the 7th round. Al Davis, the owner of the Raiders, said that he could play both sports at the same time, even if that meant missing some football games to finish up the baseball season. With the compromise meant he did eventually play in the NFL and split time in the backfield with other running back Marcus Allen. Bo Jackson was definitely a better baseball player than football player, but he wasn't necessarily horrible. His final career numbers was 2,782 yards, 16 touchdowns, and an average yards per carry of 5.4. Although Jackson didn't play super long in the NFL, he did have some impact while he was there, just not as much as he could have had.
Apparently, Bo Jackson shaken up a bit.
I know that I had dislocated my hip, and I snapped it back in the socket while I was on the ground, but I just thought, well, it's going to be a hip horner type of thing. And once I stood up and tried to put some weight on it, it felt like somebody was jabbing an ice pick in my pelvic cup. And I said, oh, this could be a little bit serious than what I thought. And come to find out that it was.
After his injury, he did not play another NFL game, but did eventually come back to pro sports playing in baseball for a little bit, before eventually retiring because his career in the MLB also fizzled out.
Bangs through Bosworth, touchdown Raiders!
The first pick in the 1987 NFL Draft was quarterback Vinny Testaverde. Testaverde, picked by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, played there from 1987 to 1992. He went on to play with Cleveland 1993 through 1995, moved with the team to Baltimore in 1996 and played there until 1997, had a stint with the New York Jets from 1998 to 2003, had 1-year stints with Dallas, went back to the Jets in 2005, 1-year stint with New England as a backup, and a 1-year stint in Carolina in 2007. Overall, he reached the Pro Bowl just 2 times in his career, in 1996 and 1998. His time in Tampa Bay fizzled out because, well, he wasn't quite developed yet. In his second season, he had just 47.6 completion percentage and 35 interceptions. Because of his struggles in Tampa Bay, he became an unrestricted free agent in 1993 and signed with the Cleveland Browns. Testaverde became the starter halfway through the 1993 season after Bernie Kosar was released. He would later lead the team to the playoffs in 1994. He moved with Cleveland to Baltimore in 1996, became the first quarterback to play with the Baltimore Ravens. He made his first Pro Bowl with that team. He then signed a 4-year contract with them in 1997, although he did not play good in 1997 and was released after an injury. In 1998, his first year with the New York Jets, he was involved in a game at the very end of the year to eliminate the Seattle Seahawks from playoff contention. He was hurt in the first game of the 1999 season and did not play much of that year. He was replaced by Chad Pennington in 2002 and 2003 because of injuries. He then signed with Dallas to be a backup to Quincy Carter, but took over the team after Carter was cut halfway through the season. He re-signed with the Jets in 2005 because of an injury to their starter, Chad Pennington. That year, he set the NFL record for the most consecutive seasons with at least 1 touchdown. He was Tom Brady's backup in 2006. Signed to Carolina in 2007 because of an injury to their starter, Jake Delhomme. His last game in the NFL was against the team that drafted him in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Overall, Testaverde, not necessarily a bad quarterback, but definitely not worth the first overall pick, especially since he was mostly a career backup. First pick in the 1988 NFL Draft was Andre Bruce. Andre Bruce was a defensive end and was drafted by Atlanta in 1998 and played there until 1991. He then signed with the Los Angeles Raiders and moved with the team back to Oakland in 1992 through 1998. Throughout his career, he only started in 42 games.
And then there was the incident with a BB gun. Here you get this guy who can't play, okay? And then he's pulling like a BB gun on a pizza guy. I mean, this is just, you could not write a better script than this.
Don't you know they will lock you up? He saw him on scout team one day, blocking.
I thought he could maybe be a tight end. He had big-time tight end ability.
Bruce played his last little bit in Atlanta as a tight end, but eventually went to Oakland and there went back to playing on the defense as a defensive end. He never had more than 6 sacks in 1 year in his entire career and ended his career with 4 interceptions, 1 return for a touchdown, 9 forced fumbles, only 32 sacks, 275 combined tackles. Overall, for the guy who was projected to be the next Reggie White, he definitely was not that, and he also was not worth the first overall pick.
Dallas Cowboys select Troy Aikman, quarterback, UCLA.
Aikman would go on to play his entire career in Dallas from 1989 to 2000. In that time, he played in and won 3 Super Bowls, earned a Super Bowl MVP, appeared in 6 Super Bowls, and won the Walter Payton Man of the Year award in 1997. The Dallas Cowboys actually took 2 quarterbacks in the 1989 draft. However, Aikman outplayed other quarterback Steve Walsh for the starting job. He would go 0-11 as a starter in his first year, and in his second year he missed a few games due to an injury. A similar story happened in 1991 as the team started 6-4, but he got hurt and missed the rest of the season until he played in the divisional round game versus the Detroit Lions. 1992 and 1993 were Super Bowl wins, both over the Buffalo Bills. He was hurt in the 1994 playoffs and did not get to finish that year. In 1995, he won the Super Bowl versus the Pittsburgh Steelers. He became the first quarterback in Dallas history in 1997 to have 3 straight 3,000-yard seasons. The team started to falter after the 1997 season, going 6-10 and their head coach resigning at the end of the year. In 1998, he missed 5 games. They made the playoffs but lost versus the Arizona Cardinals. 1999 was the last year he would make the playoffs, and they lost to Minnesota. He had multiple concussions in the 2000 season, and he was in and out of the lineup. Randall Cunningham took his place. Overall, being the quarterback of a team that debatably had a dynasty in the 1990s, he was obviously a good quarterback, ending his career with 32,942 yards, 165 touchdowns to just 141 interceptions, and a completion percentage of 61.5. Seeing as how successful the Dallas Cowboys were and how Aikman was the starter there, I would say he's probably worth that first overall pick. First overall pick in the 1990 NFL Draft, Jeff George. Drafted by the Indianapolis Colts, he played there from 1990 until 1993. Jeff George was a journeyman in the NFL, ultimately playing for 8 different teams, that being Indianapolis, Atlanta, Oakland, Minnesota, Washington, Seattle, Chicago, and then back to Oakland. However, the last 3 stints he didn't actually play on the field in the regular season very much, if at all. George was the passing leader in 1997, his first year with the Oakland Raiders. George only had 1 winning season for his entire NFL career, and that was with Indianapolis in 1992. That year, he played 10 games, he had 7 touchdowns, but 15 interceptions. He refused to go to training camp in 1993, which was his last year with the Indianapolis Colts. He took Atlanta to the playoffs his second year there in 1995. In 1996, he got into an argument with the head coach, and the head coach suspended him for the rest of the season, so he only played a few games there, and then at the end of the season left Atlanta. Jeff George was also the first quarterback to play in Tennessee, as he was a part of the first NFL game there versus the Tennessee Titans while he was with the Oakland Raiders. The head coach that he started with Oakland left and was replaced with John Gruden, who George didn't like and didn't like his style of play. Later on in interviews, he said that he would ignore offensive coordinators' play calls in 1998, doing whatever he wanted on 3rd down. This led to him leaving Oakland and having a one-stint season with the Minnesota Vikings in 1999, taking over for Randall Cunningham. While George was there, he led them to the playoffs, but they lost in the divisional round versus the St. Louis Rams. Jeff George signed in Washington to be Brad Johnson's backup. Johnson got hurt in Week 9, so Jeff George got the start. However, Johnson did come back throughout the season, but he ended up getting benched in favor of George, and then George got benched again later on in the season in favor of Johnson. However, his second year in Washington, they got a different head coach who had a very similar offensive style to Jay Gruden's. Jeff George put up an adamant fight for this as he did not like that system, and he was released after a Monday night game versus the Green Bay Packers. He wouldn't play in many more NFL games after that. Being a journeyman and not really being a starter for most of his career, Jeff George was definitely not worth the first overall pick. The first overall pick in the 1991 NFL Draft was defensive tackle Russell Maryland. Maryland was drafted by the Dallas Cowboys and played there from 1991 until 1995. He then went on to play in Oakland from 1996 to 1999 and finished up his career with Green Bay in 2000. During his playing time, Russell Maryland played in and won 3 Super Bowls with the Dallas Cowboys and made 1 Pro Bowl in 1993. An interesting fact is that Dallas actually wasn't trying to pick him. They traded up in the draft to try to get Rocket Ismail. However, he signed with Toronto in the CFL, so the Cowboys ended up with Maryland. Maryland wasn't exactly a pass rusher, however he was a good run stopper in his time. Dallas liked him so much that he ended up starting as a rookie. In total, Russell Maryland had 466 combined tackles, 7 official tackles for loss. They didn't start counting him until later in his career. He had 1 safety, 9 forced fumbles, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, and 24.5 sacks. Maryland was a good defensive tackle in the NFL. However, much like Irving Fryar, it's tough to say whether or not he really deserved the first overall pick. However, he did contribute in the NFL, so he wasn't exactly a bad player. The first pick in the 1992 NFL Draft was Steve Edmond. Edmond was drafted by Indianapolis and played from 1992 until 1997 in the NFL. You can tell something by the fact that I couldn't find many NFL clips of him, but that might not be entirely his fault. He finished all of his seasons with Indianapolis on IR. In 1992, he blew out his left knee during a game. In 1993, he tore his patellar tendon, which no NFL player had come back from at that time. And in 1994, his first game back, he ruptured a disc in his neck and was out for the rest of the year. He would go on to play in Miami from 1995 to 1996 and would finish up his career in Washington in 1997. Overall, Edmond had 8 sacks, 134 tackles, 3 forced fumbles, 1 interception, and 1 touchdown. Edmond was definitely not worth the first overall pick in the draft. However, injuries did derail his career, so we might never know what he would have been like if he would have been able to stay healthy.
Deadly quiet. And it is intercepted. Look at him go! Edmond has it. This is Steve Edmond at 6'4", 290 pounds. He is going to score.
The first overall pick in the 1993 NFL Draft was quarterback Drew Bledsoe. Drafted by New England, Bledsoe played there from 1993 until 2001. He would later go on to play with the Buffalo Bills from 2002 to 2004 and the Dallas Cowboys from 2005 to 2006. Drew Bledsoe was a part of 2 Super Bowl teams in his time in the NFL. However, he only played in 1, that being versus the Green Bay Packers, and they lost that game. He does have a Super Bowl ring, however, that was the 2001 season, and he did not play in that Super Bowl. In his career, he had 4 Pro Bowl appearances, 1 second-team All-Pro bid in 1996, and he was the NFL passing yards leader in 1994. At one point in his career, he attempted 70 passes in 1 game, an NFL record. Drew Bledsoe did manage to lead the New England Patriots to the playoffs a lot, however they did not win much in the playoffs and never winning a Super Bowl while he was the starter. In 1998, Drew Bledsoe led the Patriots back from a deficit 2 different times on last-second touchdowns back-to-back games. The team didn't have their best years in 1999 or 2000, however he did sign a 10-year, $103 million contract in 2001.
So 3rd down and 10 now, big play for the Patriots. Bledsoe gonna run it, needs 10 yards. Oh, does he hit? Oh my! And oh, look at Drew.
Did you realize when you got hit how serious that was?
No, I couldn't think straight then. I had on top of the internal thing, I also got my bell rung pretty good. Really, my insides didn't hurt until after the game, but then they started to hurt pretty bad. There were some touchy sequences when I got to the hospital when I was under, where they actually, for a while, were considering opening my chest up to try and find what was wrong.
You have to realize how close he came to death, okay? And that's a fact, because I wrote the stories about it. I talked to the surgeons involved. I talked to the Patriot doctors. A very lucky guy that he's alive.
When Bledsoe returned to uniform, he found that his backup was now the starter.
We think we know who the first pick is. Young man named Dan Wilkinson, defensive tackle extraordinaire from Ohio State.
Wilkinson was drafted by Cincinnati and played there from 1994 until 1997. He would later go on to play in Washington from 1998 to 2002, Detroit in 2003 to 2005, and a quick stint in Miami in 2006. He had an 11-day holdout in Cincinnati, however he did join the team later on that year.
He'd show up and flash and play brilliantly. And then against Purdue, when the game to me, he kind of just like disappeared. Was he a guy that had the will, desire, motor to be a dominant player every single snap? And talking to high school coaches that he played against up in Dayton, that was the knock on him in high school.
There were always glimpses of the talent and the greatness, but it was never sustained. He would break your heart. You'd watch a game and go, there he is, there's Big Daddy. And then the next game or the next couple of games, he would disappear.
He just never had the impact he could have. His highest career sack number in 1 year was 8. That doesn't mean he was necessarily a bad player, though. He was in the NFL for a very long time, and he did have production, just not first overall production.
The Carolina Panthers have traded the first pick in the draft to the Cincinnati Bengals. The Bengals have selected running back from Penn State, Keyshawn Carter.
Carter was seen as a can't-miss prospect coming out of college. All signs pointed at him being an amazing back until one play in a preseason game early in his career.
I think my third running play and the 8th play overall on our team.
Robert Porcher, who was a Pro Bowler, beat the guard clean, was there in the backfield. Keyshawn, stuck his foot in the ground to avoid him, and that's when I think he blew the knee out.
Just try to plant and cut back to the left and just fell down.
Carter would go on to battle injuries his entire career, only playing in 59 career games and starting just 14.
It was a disaster, and it set that franchise back.
He wasn't ever the same that I saw. Didn't see that same explosiveness.
He would go on to play in Cincinnati from 1995 to 1999. He would have a one-year stint in Washington in 2000, join the Green Bay practice squad in 2002, but not play in a regular season game, and then in New Orleans from 2003 to 2004.
It makes me mad a little bit. Does that make somebody a bust? It wasn't because of my talent. It was because of injuries. And just so happened that it was like one injury after another, and they never really got to see the type of player I think I could have been in the league.
The first overall pick in the 1996 NFL Draft was wide receiver Keyshawn Johnson. Picked by the New York Jets, he played there from 1996 until 1999. He would also go on to play in Tampa Bay from 2000 to 2003, Dallas in 2004 to 2005, and a one-year stint in Carolina in 2006. In his time in the NFL, he earned a Super Bowl ring with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and 3 Pro Bowl appearances in 1998, 1999, and 2001. He was traded to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the 2000 season. During his time with the Buccaneers, they got to the Super Bowl. He racked up 6 catches during that Super Bowl. He ultimately left Tampa Bay because of an argument with head coach at the time, John Gruden. His first year in Dallas in 2004, he led the team in receiving yards. Ultimately, the reason he left Dallas was due to salary cap, as they wanted to sign Terrell Owens and they could not afford both of them, so Keyshawn Johnson had to go. In his career, he had 4 1,000-yard seasons and ended with 10,571 yards and 64 touchdowns. Overall, Johnson was a good wide receiver. However, he was never a huge number one and wasn't the dominant force someone like Calvin Johnson was, and didn't really live up to the first overall pick.
With the first pick in the draft, the St. Louis Rams select Orlando Pace.
Pace would go on to play a major part in the St. Louis Rams offensive line, playing there from 1997 up to 2008. He finished his career with the Chicago Bears in 2009. Throughout his career, he was a part of a St. Louis team that earned a Super Bowl ring. He played in 7 different Pro Bowls, had 3 first-team All-Pro selections, had 1 second All-Team Pro selection. He was a part of the 2000s decade team, and he was enshrined in the Football Hall of Fame. Pace had holdouts in both 2009 and 2004 because the Rams kept extending him by 1 year and he wanted a longer deal with more money. Pace had to deal with injuries throughout his career, missing 6 games in 2002, missing a lot of the year in 2006 due to injury, and missing all of the 2007 season due to injury. He did have a bounce-back season in the 2008 year, however St. Louis did not want to pay him what he wanted, so he moved to the Chicago Bears. After an injury he suffered in Chicago, he decided to hang it up at the end of the 2009 season. Overall, Orlando Pace was obviously worth the pick, as he's in the Hall of Fame, and really helped the St. Louis Rams offensive line. First overall pick in the 1998 NFL Draft was quarterback Peyton Manning. Manning needs no introduction, obviously. 2-time Super Bowl champion, a Super Bowl MVP, a 5-time MVP, Offensive Player of the Year awards in 2004 and 2013, the Comeback Player of the Year award in 2012, the Walter Payton Man of the Year award in 2005, 7-time First-Team All-Pro selection, 3-time Second-Team All-Pro selection, 14 Pro Bowls, and 3 passing yard leaders. Obviously, Manning was a good quarterback.
This is the game you think of, the 2006 AFC Championship game.
Jeff Saturday gave us a great speech.
He's got it, a little high. Back to throw, fires near side. Intercepted, left side, touchdown, Asante Samuel.
And the Colts are really in hot water now.
Third and goal from a yard out. Manning diving for it, and the football, is it across?
Touchdown.
kick the extra point. First the touchdown, a must. Manning rolls out. He has Klecko open, and Klecko is in for the touchdown. Now moving in motion. Taking it to the short side for the tie. The pass. It is caught, and the game is tied.
Manning would go on to play in the Super Bowl that year versus the Chicago Bears. This game was famous for the rain and for Devin Hester, but the Colts did end up winning this game, and Manning got his first Super Bowl ring. Manning is the first player to play all of his Super Bowls with different head coaches. Peyton Manning underwent neck surgery in 2011 and missed the entire season. After this, the Colts decided to draft quarterback Andrew Luck and moved on from Peyton Manning. Manning decided to sign with the Denver Broncos, playing there from 2012 until 2015.
Welcome to Levi Stadium here in Santa Clara as we are getting set for Super Bowl 50 as the Denver Broncos and Carolina Panthers will do battle for the Lombardi Trophy.
Well, the storylines, you heard them. The only 5-time MVP, probably his last game, Peyton Manning.
Even though Manning wasn't necessarily the reason the Denver Broncos got to the Super Bowl in Super Bowl 50, he did have an amazing team around him. However, they did get him his ring. Manning ended his career with 71,940 yards, 539 touchdowns to 251 interceptions, and a completion percentage of 65.3.
The Denver Broncos are world champions. They have just won Super Bowl 50.
With the first pick in the 1999 draft, the Cleveland Browns selection is from the University of Kentucky, quarterback Tim Couch.
Tim Couch would go on to play for Cleveland from 1999 until 2003. He was on both Green Bay and Jacksonville's practice squads, but never played in any games with them. Couch led the Cleveland Browns to the playoffs in 2002, but he broke his leg before the end of the season and could not play in the playoffs. Eventually, Couch would be replaced in Cleveland by quarterback Ty Dempner, and in his final year, he competed with quarterback Holcomb. It wasn't all Couch's fault that he struggled in the NFL, however. He had 2 years that he was sacked more than 50 times. He was also stuck on a brand new expansion team that didn't have very good coaching, and he was riddled with injuries. By the end of his career, he suffered from a rotator cuff injury that severely damaged his arm, and he could not throw as far as he used to be able to. He ended his career with 11,131 yards, 64 touchdowns to 67 interceptions, and a completion percentage of 59.8. Unfortunately, we don't really know what Couch would have been in the NFL if he would have had a team around him. He just wasn't given that opportunity. The first pick of the 2000 NFL Draft was defensive end Courtney Brown. Brown was drafted by Cleveland and played there from 2000 until 2004. He also had a stint in Denver at the end of his career from 2005 to 2006. Courtney Brown was yet another new Cleveland Brown that would struggle with injuries. His second year, he had a laundry list of injuries and shattered his left knee. Played for 7 years in the NFL, you can probably ascertain that he wasn't worth the pick, only having 196 tackles in his career, 36 tackles for loss, 19 sacks, 6 forced fumbles, and 1 touchdown. The first overall pick in the 2001 NFL Draft was quarterback Michael Vick. Vick played in Atlanta from 2001 until 2008, later going on to play in Philadelphia from 2009 to 2013, with the New York Jets for 1 year in 2014, and with the Pittsburgh Steelers for 1 year in 2015. Throughout his career, Vick had 4 Pro Bowl appearances and the NFL Comeback Player of the Year award. Interestingly, Vick was drafted by the Rockies despite not playing baseball since 8th grade. That's how good of a talent he was. He made 15 starts in 2002 in his second season. In 2003, he fractured his right fibula and missed 11 games. In 2006, he rushed for 1,000 yards. For a quarterback, that was the first time that had ever happened. And then, as many people know, Vick was arrested for dogfighting.
Best thing for me that ever happened to me in my life was me getting shipped off to Kansas, man. Because other than that, I wasn't going to change.
Running, he is running, he fumbles the ball as he's hit, and they say it knocks out of bounds.
And Kevin Cobb slowed to get up.
When Kevin went down, I was just saying to myself, Kevin, get up. I didn't think I was ready.
Oh, but he was ready. He was named the starter after Kolb's injury. However, Vic did get hurt in week 4, so they went back and forth a little bit. But from 2010 onward, he was the quarterback. They franchise tagged him at the end of that season and signed him to a 6-year contract. He got hurt in week 10 of 2012 and was replaced by Nick Foles, who ended up starting for most of the year after that. Michael Vick went off with the Eagles, having way more success throwing than he did in Atlanta. He ended up starting 3 games with the New York Jets due to injuries, and then he signed in Pittsburgh after that. However, there was much controversy surrounding this. People in Pittsburgh did not like this. However, he did play 5 weeks that season due to a Roethlisberger injury before Vic himself got hurt later on that year and was replaced by Big Ben. Vic would go on to officially retire in 2017. Vic finished with 22,464 passing yards, 133 touchdowns to 88 interceptions, and 6,105 yards rushing with 36 touchdowns. He had an average yards per carry of 7. Vic was a very good quarterback in the NFL. However, he actually played better in Philadelphia than he did in Atlanta, but he was still a very good quarterback in the NFL and probably did deserve the first overall pick. The first overall pick in the 2002 NFL Draft, David Carr. He was drafted by the Houston Texans and played there from 2002 to 2006. He later had stints in Carolina in 2007, with the New York Giants in 2008 through 2009. He played in San Francisco in 2010 and went back to the New York Giants for the 2011 and 2012 seasons. In his NFL career, he was a part of a Super Bowl team with the New York Giants. He was also the pass completion percentage leader in 2006 with 68.9. David Carr was sacked a lot in his career, especially with the Houston Texans. He holds the NFL record with most sacks in a season with 76. Throughout his NFL playing career, he did not have a single season over 3,000 yards passing. He finished his career with 14,452 yards, 65 touchdowns, 71 interceptions, a 59.7% completion percentage, and he was sacked a total of 267 times. Overall, we don't really know if David Carr was really worth the first overall pick, because he was constantly on teams that just didn't really help him out, and he got sacked too much, didn't really have the help around him. First overall pick in the 2003 NFL Draft was quarterback Carson Palmer. Drafted by Cincinnati, he played there from 2003 until 2010. He then went on to play in Oakland from 2011 to 2012, and then in Arizona from 2013 to 2017. Throughout his career, he had 3 Pro Bowl appearances, 1 second-team All-Pro selection in 2015, a Pro Bowl MVP, the passing touchdown leader in 2005, and the co-passing touchdown leader in 2015. Unlike many rookie quarterbacks today, Carson Palmer actually did not play in his first year and sat behind quarterback John Kitna. He did play 13 games in 2004, but didn't finish the year due to a shoulder injury. It looked like things were finally going to start to turn around in 2005 as Carson Palmer helped the team break their 15 straight seasons of losing. However, just like another Bengals quarterback we're going to talk about later on, tragedy struck. He would recover from this, playing every single game in 2006. However, the team kind of fell apart in 2007 and never really got back. He requested a trade from Cincinnati in 2010, however, Mike Brown, the owner of the team, said there was no trade despite Palmer threatening to retire. He would eventually be traded to the Oakland Raiders 9 weeks into the 2010 season due to an injury to Raiders quarterback Jason Campbell. Palmer did not have an amazing career in Oakland and was quickly out. However, he did sign with the Arizona Cardinals in 2013 and turned his career around. He even helped Arizona get all the way to the NFC Championship game. However, they fell just short of making a Super Bowl. At the end of his Arizona career, he had too many injuries and they just kept piling up, and he eventually just had to retire because of them. Overall, Palmer had 46,247 yards, 254 touchdowns to 187 interceptions, and a 62.5% completion percentage. Overall, I would say Carson Palmer was worth the first overall pick, as he was very productive outside of the 2 years in Oakland, and really did help Cincinnati while he was there, even though the team around him wasn't always the best. The first pick in the 2004 NFL Draft was quarterback Eli Manning. Manning was actually drafted by the San Diego Chargers, however he refused to play with them. This led the Chargers to trade him to the New York Giants in exchange for Phillip Rivers. Throughout Manning's career, he played in and won 2 Super Bowls, appeared in 4 Pro Bowls, won the Walter Payton Man of the Year award, and the Giants decided to retire his number 10 jersey. Manning currently holds the record for the most yards in a single postseason in 2011 with 1,219. People do consider Eli Manning a future Hall of Famer. However, I respectfully disagree, but that's not exactly what this video is aiming to do. Manning did help the Giants to 2 Super Bowls, and finished his career with 57,203 yards, 360 touchdowns to just 244 interceptions, and a career completion percentage of 60.3. He definitely helped the Giants, so I can't say that he wasn't worth the first overall pick. Also, I don't think I can legally talk about Eli Manning without at least mentioning this play.
The snap, back to throw, under pressure, avoids the rush, and he's going to fight out of it, still fights out of it, now throws it deep downfield, wide open Tyree, who makes the catch at the 23-yard line. What a play by Manning. He eluded 3 sacks, and what a catch by Tyree with 58 seconds to go.
With the first selection in the 2005 NFL Draft, the San Francisco 49ers select Alex Smith, quarterback, Utah.
Alex Smith has had a wild career. In San Francisco, he had 7 different offensive coordinators in 7 different seasons. That is insane. He also didn't have a good handle on the job. He lost it a few times when in San Francisco, to J.T. Sullivan, to Sean Hill, and then eventually to Colin Kaepernick. He would eventually be traded to the Kansas City Chiefs.
NFL AM with breaking news into our NFL Network newsroom. Hello, I'm Omar Reese. Andy Reid has his quarterback. Fox Sports insider and NFL Network contributor Jay Glazer reporting that the Kansas City Chiefs have agreed to acquire Alex Smith in a trade with the San Francisco 49ers.
This stop was actually Alex Smith's most successful. Most people don't really remember this because he was taken over by Patrick Mahomes, and obviously Mahomes is better than Alex Smith was. But Kansas City was still good when Alex Smith was there, and he actually played really well. He had that amazing game versus the Indianapolis Colts in the 2013 wildcard round. They lost to the New England Patriots in the 2015 divisional round and to the New England Patriots in the championship game the year before Patrick Mahomes became the starter. However, all good things had to come to an end. Kansas City was going to move on from Alex Smith, so they decided to trade him to Washington in 2018.
Hello, we have breaking news at our NFL Network studios in Los Angeles. I'm Ari Wolf. Well, it's Super Bowl week. You expect big things to happen, and something big happened away from the Super Bowl. Chiefs quarterback Alex Smith has been traded to the Washington Redskins.
That year they started 6-3. Unfortunately, he wouldn't be able to finish that season, and his life was about to change forever. Miraculously, he was actually able to come back from this horrific injury and played a little bit in the 2020 season.
Folks, Alex Smith, for the first time since November 18th of 2018, when he had that nasty compound fracture in his right leg, is back out here to play quarterback in the National Football.
The thing is, it's kind of hard to say if Alex Smith really deserved the first overall pick. I mean, yeah, sure, he was a serviceable quarterback and actually really good in Kansas City, but he didn't help San Francisco a whole lot and kind of became a game manager at the end of his career. The first overall pick in the 2006 NFL Draft was defensive end Mario Williams. Being drafted by Houston, Williams played there from 2006 until 2011. He would later go on to play in Buffalo from 2012 to 2015 and had a one-year stint in Miami in 2016, although he did not play much that year. Throughout his career, Williams had 4 Pro Bowl appearances, got a first-team All-Pro selection in 2014, and a second-team All-Pro selection in both 2007 and 2013. Williams was pretty good for Houston, although he did play banged up. He missed a few games in 2010 due to that. He then moved to the outside linebacker spot in 2011 before tearing his pectoral and being out for the rest of the season. He He would then go on to play with the Buffalo Bills, and he actually did pretty well there. In one game in 2012, he had 3 sacks versus the Indianapolis Colts, and in 2013, he recorded 4.5 sacks in one game versus the Carolina Panthers. However, at the end of his stint in Buffalo, Rex Ryan was hired, which affected Mario Williams' sacks because Rex Ryan had him play more coverage than in pass rush. Mario Williams was a good defensive end in the NFL, but was he really worth the first overall pick? I don't know. It's kind of debatable. He did play really good, but for first overall pick, he never really took over the game, really until he was in Buffalo. Was he worth it then? Maybe, but I'm not knocking him. Mario Williams was definitely a good player. The first overall pick in the 2007 NFL Draft was quarterback Jamarcus Russell. A famous draft bust, Russell only played 3 seasons in the NFL. Interestingly enough, Lions GM at the time, Matt Millen, told Al Davis, the owner of the Oakland Raiders, not to draft him because of the fact that he was overly distracted in his interviews and didn't do very well. However, Al Davis decided to take him anyway. Russell held out his rookie year until week 2 and didn't end up playing until December. That might have come back to bite him as he got hurt in his very first career start. Russell started all of the games in 2008, however the same cannot be said for the 2009 season as he was benched in week 5. After his benching, he would never play in another NFL game again. I think it's very clear to say that Jamarcus Russell was definitely not worth the first overall pick. You can even argue that he wasn't worth any draft selection. The first overall pick in the 2008 NFL Draft, offensive tackle Jake Long. Long was drafted by the Miami Dolphins in 2008 and played there until 2012. He would go on to play with the St. Louis Rams in 2013 through 2014 and had 1-year stints in both Atlanta and Minnesota in 2015 and 2016. Through his NFL career, Jake Long had 4 Pro Bowl appearances, 1 first-team All-Pro selection in 2010, and 1 second-team All-Pro selection in 2009. Early in his career, Long had 61 consecutive games started, not missing any games due to injury. That would change in 2011 as he missed a few games for the first time in his career. His first year with the St. Louis Cardinals, he tore his ACL in 2013, and he would do it again in 2014, his last year in St. Louis. He would only play 11 snaps the entire 2015 season with the Atlanta Falcons. He signed with the Baltimore Ravens ahead of the 2016 season, however did not want to sign an injury waiver, so they released him. Instead, he ended up going to the Minnesota Vikings, where he played a few games, but tore his Achilles versus the Washington Redskins and was placed on IR. He would not play another snap in the NFL, retiring at the end of the season due to his injuries. If he didn't have to deal with his injuries, he definitely would be worth it. I still say he was probably worth it, however, he didn't have the longevity that he could have.
8 seconds remaining. Stafford takes the snap, sets in the pocket, rolls left. This is going to be it. He's got to get rid of it. Stafford sets, looks, now running back to his right. Stafford looking for somewhere to go, sets and throws.
And it's going to be on Hank Poteet in the end zone.
And Matthew Stafford is down on the field and is not getting up.
Yeah, get him off me.
Now he does.
Pass interference. Defense number 23. Foul occurred in the end zone. Ball be placed at the 1-yard line. First down.
Stafford is going to have to come out of the game.
He's got it. It's a shoulder problem.
Did you get your AC joint or? No, I never done that. Hey, that's the timeout. I can play, right? No. Yeah, help me up. I can throw the ball if you need me to throw the ball. Sorry. Hey! I can throw the ball if you need me to throw the ball.
Is Stafford coming back in?
I think Stafford will come back in the game.
I did not think he was going to come back.
Kind of stuff that endears you to a city. Let's see if that timeout comes back to haunt the Browns. It allowed Matthew Stafford to come back in.
This is it. This is the game.
Last play of the game. Takes the snap. Rolls, end zone. Touchdown. Detroit Lions out.
This sequence in his rookie season pretty much sums up who Matthew Stafford is. Stafford has been a criminally underrated quarterback in the NFL. And yes, I am a little biased because I'm a Lions fan, but that doesn't mean that I look at him with rose-colored eyes. Yes, he does throw a little too many interceptions, and sometimes he can make some not amazing decisions, but the team around him is completely horrible. You put any other quarterback on that team, they're going to struggle. And I think we're going to see that with somebody we're going to talk about later on. I might be jumping the gun a little. However, I feel like people don't really believe me when I say this. Tell me if you still don't believe me after this. He won the NFL Comeback Player of the Year award in 2011. He has only made one Pro Bowl. However, he's the fastest quarterback to throw to 20,000, 30,000, 40,000, and 45,000 yards in NFL history. He also has the most pass attempts in 1 year in 2012 and was the first 60% of his passes or more in every game of 1 year. That was in 2015. I'm really excited to see what Matthew Stafford does with the Los Angeles Rams, and I really hope he can take that team to a promised land. Oh, and just in case that first clip wasn't enough for you, here's yet another reason why I believe Stafford is a very underrated quarterback.
So now with 1:02 to go, it is the Cowboys leading by 6. Stepping up, looking for somewhere to go. Throws deep middle back Calvin, complete to the 37-yard line.
Plunkett! Lenny Hunt!
Steps to his right, throws deep left sideline. Got Durham out there. He catches it inside the 30, inside the 25.
That is one fine throw.
Huddle! Huddle! Let's get this in here, boys. Everybody's alive, right? Lenny Hunt!
Down 6:33 seconds to go. Throws, wants Calvin, got him, inside the 5, into the end zone. No, they're going to stay inside the 1.
Hey, clock it! Riley! Clock! Get it! Here, clock! Time!
He dives in for the touchdown. Did he get it? Yes, sir, he did. Touchdown, Detroit Lions.
The first overall pick in the 2010 NFL Draft was quarterback Sam Bradford. Bradford was picked by the St. Louis Rams and played there from 2010 until 2014. He would later go on to play in Philadelphia in 2015, Minnesota 2016 through 2017, and 1 year in Arizona in 2018. Sam Bradford won the Rookie of the Year award and had the highest completion percentage of any quarterback in 2016. Here's the thing, Bradford wasn't necessarily a bad quarterback, but he was injured, like all the time. He started every game as a rookie, off to a good start. However, in 2011, his year was cut short by a high ankle sprain. 2012 was not a good year for them after Jeff Fisher came in and they went 7-8-1. However, Bradford did play the entire year. Same cannot be said in 2013 as he tore his ACL in week 7. He tore the same ACL in a preseason game of 2014 and missed the entire season. Moving on to Philadelphia, he didn't play horrible, but he didn't exactly play perfectly. However, you can also say that was because of Chip Kelly and his horrible handling of that team. However, he was traded to Minnesota and had a pretty good season. He started 15 of the games, and although the team went 8-8, he did play really good, especially his first game there versus the Green Bay Packers. It looked like things were going to get off to a great start in the 2017 season as Minnesota handily beat the New Orleans Saints in the first week. However, it was reported after the game that he had an injury on that same knee that he had 2 ACL tears on and would eventually be out for the rest of the year. As his NFL starting days were winding down, he did sign with the Arizona Cardinals to be a stopgap quarterback so they didn't have to start Josh Rosen right away. This did not go good. In the 3 games he started in Arizona, he played horrible in each and every one. He was benched and eventually cut later in the year, although it didn't really help because Rosen wasn't that much better. We don't really know what Sam Bradford would have been without the injuries. He was an okay quarterback in St. Louis and a pretty good quarterback, if not a little bit too conservative in his Minnesota days, but we just don't know what he would have been without those injuries. First overall pick in the 2011 NFL Draft was quarterback Cam Newton. Drafted by the Carolina Panthers, he played there from 2011 until 2019 before moving on to the New England Patriots in 2020. Cam Newton's career started off really good. He won the MVP award in 2015. He earned the Offensive Player of the Year award in 2015. He earned the Rookie of the Year award. He had a first-team All-Pro selection in 2015. He has 3 Pro Bowl appearances. He has the most rushing touchdowns by any quarterback. He also holds the record for the most rushing touchdowns by a quarterback in 1 year with 14, and the most rushing attempts by a quarterback. He was just the 4th rookie quarterback to pass for over 3,000 yards, actually passing for over 4,000 yards that season. However, the team didn't do great, ending at 6-10. He had surgery in the 2003 offseason. That same year, he would miss 1 game due to a car crash in which he suffered 2 fractured vertebrae. They would go on to beat Arizona in the 2014 playoffs, but would lose to the Seattle Seahawks. His 2015 season was undeniably amazing, going all the way to the Super Bowl, but losing to the Denver Broncos. 2017, he had surgery in the offseason to repair his shoulder. This was the same year that he said this.
I know you take a lot of pride in seeing your receivers play well. Devin Funchess has seemed to really embrace the physicality of his routes and getting those extra yards. Does that give you a little bit of an enjoyment to see him kind of truck sticking people out there?
It's funny to hear a female talk about routes. Like,
yeah, that's not too great. This didn't seem to affect him too much on the field, as they started 6-2 in 2018, but they lost 6 straight games in a row, and he had surgery on the same arm again and only played 2 games in 2019. He started out really good in New England when he first got there. However, he did get COVID, and then he kind of fell apart. And this is where we get to the other side of Cam Newton. Pretty much after the 2017 season, Newton has just not been very good. He sometimes wildly overthrows his marks, sometimes he wildly underthrows his marks. He has just way too many interceptions and doesn't seem to really be able to control the ball anymore. If I had to guess, this is probably due to all of the shoulder surgeries that he's had to overcome and all of the injuries he has there. But it is kind of sad to see a once great quarterback devolve into, well, this. Cam Newton was worth the first overall pick. Is he still now? Probably not. Maybe he can bounce back, but I just don't know if he's healthy enough to do so. The first quarterback picked in the 2012 NFL Draft was quarterback Andrew Luck. Picked by the Indianapolis Colts, Luck would play there from 2012 to 2018. Kinda. The thing with Luck is he got hurt. Like a lot. He missed 2 games due to injury in 2015, came back, and then was out again for the rest of the year after getting yet another injury. He had a good year in 2016, but the team really didn't, so they went 8-8, and then he didn't play at all in 2017 due to yet another injury. He would come back seemingly stronger than ever in 2018, and while the team took a little bit to heat up, Andrew Luck didn't. However, the team did finish 10-6 by the end of the year. They beat the Houston Texans in the wildcard game, but lost to the Kansas City Chiefs in the divisional round. And then Luck decided to shock the world.
This certainly isn't how I envisioned this or planned this, but I am going to retire. This is not an easy decision. Honestly, it's the hardest decision of my life, but it is the right decision for me. For the last 4 years or so, I've been in this cycle of injury, pain, rehab, injury, pain, rehab, and it's been unceasing and unrelenting, both in season, and off season, and I felt stuck in it. And the only way I see out is to no longer play football. It's taken my joy of this game away. And this sorry. And after 2016, where I played in pain and was unable to regularly practice, I made a vow to myself that I would not go down that path again. I find myself in a similar situation, and the only way forward for me is to remove myself from football in this cycle that I've been in.
Andrew Luck has not come out of retirement, and probably will never, so we have to judge him based on what he did while he was in Indianapolis. And while he didn't last as long as I bet the Colts wanted, that doesn't mean he was a bad quarterback. He had 4 4,000-yard seasons. Overall, he finished with 23,671 yards, 171 touchdowns to 83 interceptions, and a completion percentage of 60.8. Overall, for the time and for what Luck did to the franchise, I would say he was worth it, although they kind of killed him by not putting the protection around him when he needed it most. The first overall pick in the 2013 NFL Draft was offensive tackle Eric Fisher. Drafted by the Kansas City Chiefs, he's played there his entire career up until this point from 2013 to 2020. In his time in the NFL, he's played in 2 Super Bowls, winning 1, and has appeared in 2 Pro Bowls. Eric Fisher started his NFL career as a right tackle despite playing left tackle in college. This move might have not been best for him. He struggled his first year, giving up 7 sacks. However, by the start of the 2014 season, he was moved back to left tackle. Just a few years later, Pro Football Focus named him the best left tackle in the league in 2016. Fisher missed 8 games due to injury in 2019, however, was able to play in the playoffs and helped the team get to and win a Super Bowl. Notably, Eric Fisher caught a touchdown pass in 2020. However, he did wind up on the COVID-19 list at one point in the season. Unfortunately for Fisher, he tore his Achilles in the AFC Championship game and missed the Super Bowl versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Him being out of the lineup heavily affected the Kansas City Chiefs offense and was a big reason for why the Tampa Bay Buccaneers won that game. Although Eric Fisher does not currently have a home in the NFL, my prediction is he probably will by the start of the 2021 season. So far in his career, he's been a solid tackle in the NFL, and I believe he's been worth this first overall pick. The first pick in the 2014 NFL Draft was defensive end Jadeveon Clowney. Drafted by the Houston Texans, he would play there from 2014 to 2018. He would then go on to have one-year stints in both Seattle in 2019 and Tennessee in 2020, before signing a one-year contract this season to play for the Cleveland Browns. Throughout his career, he has earned a second-team All-Pro selection in 2016, and he has appeared in 3 Pro Bowls. Clowney only played 4 games in his rookie year due to a torn meniscus that required surgery. In 2015, he played 13 games, however, and recorded 40 tackles, but just 4.5 sacks. That year, he would get an interception in a playoff victory, however, over the Oakland Raiders. Eventually, he would go on to be traded to the Seattle Seahawks in 2019, and didn't have a huge impact, but did something. He would then go on to be picked up by the Tennessee Titans in the 2020 offseason, and he just didn't have an impact there. He only played 8 games and didn't even manage to get a sack. Overall, I'd say Clowney probably wasn't worth the first overall pick. I mean, yeah, you think that he would be because of how many teams have tried to get him, but his highest sack total in one season is only 9.5, and that's on top of the fact that he can't stay healthy. He's only finished a full season once, and that was in 2017. All other years, he's missed at least a few games. Overall, for a guy that's been in the league since 2014 and only having 32 sacks, while a majority of his career he was playing with J.J. Watt, I'd say that that's not exactly the production that they were hoping for. First pick in the 2015 NFL Draft was quarterback Jameis Winston. Drafted by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, he would play there from 2015 until 2019 before signing as a free agent with the New Orleans Saints ahead of the 2020 season. Winston would go on to be the passing leader in 2019, earn a Pro Bowl selection in 2019, and was named to the NFL All-Rookie team. In a sign for things to come, his very first pass in the NFL would go for a pick 6.
For Tampa Bay. Jameis' first pass, intercepted, sends the ball to the house. Touchdown Titans!
That doesn't mean he was necessarily a bad rookie by any means. He had 5 touchdowns in one game versus the Philadelphia Eagles that same year. Tampa Bay was always a streaky team with Winston at quarterback, like in 2016 when they had a 3-game losing streak, but would back that up with a 5-game winning streak. Winston is actually the first quarterback in NFL history to have consecutive 4,000-yard seasons. However, he did miss a lot of time in the 2017 season due to a shoulder injury. He had a quarterback competition for most of the year in 2018 with Ryan Fitzpatrick before he moved on in 2019 to go play with the Miami Dolphins. And this is where we get to Jameis Winston's other side. He has tremendous upside, obviously. He threw for 5,000 yards in 2019. He was the first quarterback with consecutive 4,000 yards. He's definitely a good talent, but he just can't control the ball. He's had just so many interceptions in his career, it's kind of hard to count. I mean, yes, Favre also threw a pick 6 his first game, but Favre also had a hard time keeping the ball out of opponents' hands, just as Jameis Winston had, and that eventually drove him out of the starting position in Tampa after completing the perfect season, 30 for 30.
Only 3 points scored in the entire half. There it is. An interception for a touchdown. It's Debo Jones.
Winston didn't get a whole lot of time to start in New Orleans, although he did play one game in relief of Drew Brees and came in for a trick play in a playoff game versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. If Winston can get his interceptions under control, I would say he definitely was worth the pick because he has all the talent in the world. However, if he can't get his interceptions under control, then he may not even be able to be a starter. In that case, he probably wasn't worth. I think we have to wait and find out. The first overall pick in the 2016 NFL Draft is quarterback Jared Goff. Goff was drafted by the Los Angeles Rams and would play there from 2016 to 2020 before getting traded to the Detroit Lions ahead of the 2021 season. Throughout his career, Goff has appeared in one Super Bowl but did not win it, and has also had 2 Pro Bowl appearances. Goff did not start his rookie season. His first 9 games in that season, he was a backup. However, when he did get to play, he really did not look good, and the team went 4-12. However, when Sean McVay joined the team in 2017, Goff instantly looked better, and the team went 11-5. However, they did lose to the Atlanta Falcons in the playoffs. 2018 was really the Rams' year to shine. They had that one game versus the Kansas City Chiefs that was like 54-51 or something like that, and they got all the way to the Super Bowl. Unfortunately, they did lose to the New England Patriots, but that doesn't mean this year wasn't without merit. I mean, it's already hard enough to get to a Super Bowl, but Jared Goff is also the youngest quarterback to ever win an NFC championship game. The 2019 season started good for Jared Goff, and the team went 3-0, but they finished 9-7 and missed the playoffs. 2020 wasn't a bad year for Goff, but it kind of was at the same time. Every turn, Sean McVay was throwing him under the bus, and to make matters worse, he would go on to get hurt in Week 16. However, he would play through the injury, although he wasn't supposed to, in the 2020 playoffs because of an injury to their backup. They would even go on to win versus the Seattle Seahawks, but they lost to the Green Bay Packers in the divisional round. He would then be traded to the Detroit Lions in exchange for Matthew Stafford and a few picks. This would mark the first time 2 first overall picks have been swapped in the history of the NFL. While people like to complain about how bad Goff was, I don't think he was necessarily awful. I mean, he had 2 seasons over 4,000 yards passing, and he so far in his career has had 18,171 yards, 107 touchdowns to just 55 interceptions, and a completion percentage of 63.4. While I don't think Goff is necessarily someone who can carry a team by himself, I don't think he's awful. However, Detroit's team is, and I don't think he will be very successful there, but that's just a gut feeling. Overall, he did take them to the Super Bowl, so maybe he was worth the pick. However, he was only there for like 5 years, and only really started 4, and to them, that might not have been worth it. We'll just have to see what he does for the rest of his career. The first overall pick in the 2017 NFL Draft was defensive end Myles Garrett. Drafted by the Cleveland Browns, he still plays there today. Throughout his career, he has earned 1 first-team All-Pro selection in 2020, 1 second-team All-Pro selection in 2018, and has appeared in 2 Pro Bowls. Garrett missed the start of his rookie season due to a high ankle sprain. However, in his first game played, he would record 2 sacks. He would go on to play 11 games this season. Garrett would go on to play every game in the 2018 season and would record 13.5 sacks. And then in 2019, we had the incident. This would result in the second longest suspension for on-field misconduct in NFL history. He would get reinstated and bounce back in the 2020 season, playing mostly every game. He did miss a few games due to COVID. He's only had 1 season under 10 sacks, and that was his rookie season, and he's had 42.5 sacks overall. If Garrett can keep his head on his shoulders and stay out of trouble in the NFL, he probably will be worth this pick. First overall pick in the 2018 NFL Draft, Baker Mayfield. Mayfield was drafted by Cleveland and still plays there today. He did not actually start his rookie season. However, by week 3, he took over for an injured Tyrod Taylor and brought them back in that game for a victory, ending a 19-game losing streak. Baker Mayfield had a pretty good rookie year, even earning a spot on the All-Rookie team. However, 2019 was a down year for him. He had a worse completion percentage than his rookie year, worse touchdown-to-interception ratio, and took way more sacks. However, 2020 was a bounce-back season. With a new head coach, Mayfield's play went back to even better than he was in his rookie season, and even led the Browns to the playoffs for the first time since their rebirth. They would eventually go on to lose to the Kansas City Chiefs, but they were at least there. So far in his career, he's had 11,115 yards, 75 touchdowns, 43 interceptions, and a completion percentage of 61.9. Overall, if Baker Mayfield continues his 2020 season, he will be worth the pick. However, if he reverts back to his 2019 form, he may not be. We just don't have enough information yet to clearly say. First overall pick in the 2019 NFL Draft, Kyler Murray. Murray was drafted by the Arizona Cardinals and continues to play there today. The Cardinals had also drafted a quarterback in the first round of the 2018 draft, Josh Rosen, but they got rid of him in favor of Kyler Murray. So far, Murray has won the Rookie of the Year, has appeared in a Pro Bowl, and was named to the All-Rookie team. His first game in the NFL was a comeback tie versus the Detroit Lions. Kyler Murray has been a very good quarterback for them, and he's played most of his games. He did leave during Week 16 due to a hamstring injury in the 2020 season, however he did play through it in the Week 17 game. In the 2020 season, they actually had a playoff chance, however the whole team melted down at the end of the year, and they just never got there. Kyler Murray may have had something to do with this, but it's not entirely his fault. So far, Kyler Murray, through 2 seasons, has had 7,693 yards, 46 touchdowns to 24 interceptions, a completion percentage of 65.8, and has had 1,363 rushing yards with 15 touchdowns. If Murray continues to grow, he should be a very good quarterback for Arizona going forward. However, he needs to continue to grow. I can talk about this more in another video, but I do see some flaws with his game as of right now.
Shotgun. Murray out of the pocket. 7 seconds. 6 seconds. Murray heaves it downfield. It is. Oh, it's caught. It is caught. DeAndre Hopkins.
First overall pick in the 2020 NFL Draft was quarterback Joe Burrow. Hailed as the savior of the Cincinnati Bengals, through the first few weeks of the year, he pretty much was. Although the team wasn't winning every game, Burrow himself was playing pretty good, racking up 2,688 yards, 13 touchdowns to 5 interceptions. However, in Week 13 of this season, everything would come crashing down.
Bad news for Cincinnati fans. Oh, Joe Burrow was bent sideways. It looked like his left leg. Oh, no. Burrow was on pace to break the rookie records for passing yards, passing attempts, completions. His season is over. One more look at it. Oh, man, that's tough.
This play alone, he tore his ACL, his MCL, he damaged his PCL, and his meniscus. He would end up missing the rest of the year because of this injury. Hopefully, Joe Burrow will be able to make a full recovery and continue to play really good in the future. Right now, we can't exactly say he was worth the pick, however, he does have a good future if he can come back and stay healthy, provided the Bengals put something around him. Well, that was fun, wasn't it? As you can see, there is a huge mix of players here. Players that redefined their position and played amazingly through their entire career, to some that fizzled out and didn't do anything in the NFL. And even to some that played for a long time in the NFL, but never really stood out, didn't really deserve the first overall pick, but wasn't necessarily a bad player. This was an interesting experience for me, as a lot of these players, especially a lot of the early ones, I really didn't know personally, so I had to research them, and getting to know them a little bit kind of gave me some understanding and appreciating these players, even if they didn't really turn out in the NFL. With the popular opinion and everyone thinking the Jacksonville Jaguars are going to take Trevor Lawrence first overall, I think it'll be interesting to see, 1, if they do that, and 2, how his career will turn out. Because as we've seen today, there are no guarantees in the NFL draft. Oh, you're still here? Huh, you made it through that entire thing? Holy crap, you're like my biggest fan. Thank you so much. For real, I really did put a lot of work and a lot of time into this project, so I really hope whoever made it through the whole thing, or even partially through the thing, enjoyed it. If you want to see more content like this from me in the future, comment down below. I'm definitely up for it. I just can't put it out all the time, because I can't really do this every week, or just like multiple days in a week. But I'm definitely willing to do these bigger projects, as long as you guys enjoy them. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next episode. Goodbye!